Right, happy Sabbath. Today is April 13, 2019, right? And we will resume. We have been away for 2 weeks, but we will continue on in the midst of, and we're studying about basically the life of Jesus during the week from the triumphal entry, actually the triumphal entry, until he was risen up and he presented himself to his disciples, right? So it's basically called the Passion Week by a lot of people, but but we were at the Mount of Olives, and there's so many things that Jesus taught on that day, because he started that day in the temple, and he was arguing with had a controversy with the scribes and the Pharisees, and he eventually said, "You scribes and Pharisees, you're hypocrites," right? You're hypocrites. He said that 7 times. 7 times. Scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites, right? That's in Matthew 23. And then after that, he left the temple for good. He never returned to the temple, and then he went to the Mount of Olives. And right, but before that, I saw certain things that we want to study now, specifically about the coming of the Lord, the day of the Lord, the coming of the Lord. And there's things that he was teaching at that time, and I want to go back to the time that he was in the temple, right? The time that he was in the temple, that's in Matthew 22. And he was arguing with he was having a controversy with the scribes and the Pharisees, right? And this is actually the parable of I think it's, right there. Wait a minute. This is Matthew what? Matthew 22 verses 2. Okay? Matthew 22 verses 2. This is the parable of the wedding feast. Right? So we're going to do the parable of the wedding feast, and then we're going to continue some more at the Mount of Olives. Some of the things that he was teaching at the Mount of Olives. Right? We went through a little of these, I think several weeks ago, but I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm trying to look for certain themes, specifically about the coming of Jesus, the coming of the Lord, the day of the Lord. Okay? All right. We'll go. Matthew 22, verse 2 to 10. I'm just going to read this. All right? The kingdom of heaven is like unto a certain king, which made a marriage for his son. And he sent forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding. Right? There's his first call. Right? I have a marriage of my son, and those who have been bidden, please come. All right? And they would not come, but the people would not come. And again, he sent forth other servants, saying, Tell them which are bidden, Behold, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen, my fatlings are killed, and all the things are ready. Come unto the marriage. But they made light of it, and went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. And the remnant took his servants. See, these servants that he sent were entreated spitefully, and they slew them. And when the king heard thereof, he was wroth. So he first called them, and they didn't want to come. Then he sent other servants, and they were entreated spitefully, and they were killed. And then when the king heard, and he was wroth, and he sent forth his armies, and destroyed those murderers, and burnt up their city. Then said he to his servants, The wedding is ready, but they which were bidden were not worthy. Go ye therefore into the highways, and as many as ye shall find, bid to the marriage. So those servants went out into the highways, and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good, and the wedding was furnished with guests. Okay, when you see this, this is a prophecy about what? Yeah, obviously Jesus coming, right? This was Jesus, right? He came to earth the first time, and what happened? They rejected him, right? They rejected. The first time he came, he was rejected. As a matter of fact, they killed him. And then he sent his disciples, right? He confirmed the covenant for 3.5 years. But then they killed him. And so he had to confirm the covenant with his disciples, these other servants. And what did they do to his disciples? They persecuted and killed his disciples. Because of that, what happened to their city? It was destroyed with an army, right? So he was telling this is what's going to happen to your country. You're going to kill me, you're going to kill my disciples, and your city is going to be destroyed by armies. And you murderers are going to be burned up in that city. And that happened in 70 AD, right? And that was it was not a turning point, but that was essentially why the message now goes to another people who are in the highways. Who are those people? The Jews are passed by, and now it's for the Gentiles. All right. So now the Gentiles, but the Gentiles are a mixed lot, right? And mixed lot. They were good and bad, right? And there was all kinds of people in the wedding. All right. It's a mixture. All right. Let's see. All right. Let's read Christ Object Lessons, because Ellen White had one whole paragraph about this, the wedding feast. Okay. So what is the marriage? What's the definition of the marriage? The marriage is representing the union of humanity and divinity. The wedding garment represents the character which all must possess. All right. Who shall be accounted fit for the guest of the wedding. The call to the feast had been given by Christ's disciples. The Lord had sent out 12 and afterward the 70, proclaiming the kingdom of God was at hand and calling upon men to repent and believe the gospel. But the call was not heeded. And the judgment pronounced came upon the Jews in the destruction of Jerusalem and the scattering of the nation. And there was a third call to the feast representing the giving of the gospel to the Gentiles. The king said, the wedding is ready, right? But they which were bidden are not worthy. The Jews were not worthy. Go therefore into the highways, and said, many ye shall find bid to the marriage. Okay? All right. Remember, what is the wedding? The union of divinity and humanity. This is very important. Okay? You have to see. Does that happen when Jesus comes the second time around? At Jesus' second coming, is that when the marriage happens? No, it's way before. We have to have divinity in humanity when? Now. The what is now. It's not when Jesus comes the second time. All right? Yeah. Okay. All right, let's go here. We continue. Verse 11 to 14. And when the king came to see the guest, now the king comes to look at the guest, right? He saw there a man who had not a wedding garment. And he said unto him, Friend, how comest thou in hither not having a wedding garment? And he was speechless. Then said the king to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of feet. For many are called, but we always use that. We always remember this quotation, right? Matthew 22:14. Many are called, but few are chosen. Okay. All right. What did Ellen White say about that? What is the examination by the king? The king's examination of the guest at the feast is represented a work of a judgment. Okay. What kind of judgment? Investigative judgment. It is while men are still dwelling upon the earth that the work of investigative judgment takes place in the courts of heaven. Right? This is the investigative. So we are living when the king is actually looking at us, whether we have the wedding garment fit for us to have, to be present at the wedding, which is the union of divinity and humanity, right? That's the wedding. The wedding is humanity and united with divinity. By the wedding garment in the parable is represented the pure, spotless character which Christ's true followers will possess. It is the righteousness of Christ, his own unblemished character, that through faith is imparted to all who receive him as their personal Savior. Right? Yeah. He who becomes a partaker of the divine nature will be in harmony with God's great standard of righteousness, his holy law. This is the rule by which God measures the action of man. Right? Yeah. The man who came to the feast without a wedding garment represents the condition of many in our world today. Right? They do not realize their need of Christ or their exercise in faith. They have not overcome their hereditary and cultivated tendencies of wrongdoing. Yet they think they are good enough in themselves. I'm reading from Christ's Object Lessons. And they rest upon their own merits instead of trusting in Christ. Right? Yeah. So this is the partaking of divine nature is the wedding. So when it says Jesus is coming to the wedding, we have to, a lot of people just right away just say, okay, that's when Jesus comes the second time. Right? You know, this is actually a lot more serious. Right? The coming of Jesus is actually now.
No.
How? In his spirit into us, right? So that we can have his divinity in us, then the marriage is going on now. Right? So that's why we have to be prepared. Yeah. The coming of Jesus is actually now. Right? There will be no future probation in which to prepare for eternity. It is in this life that we are to put on the robe of righteousness. The wedding is happening now. Right?
Not that Christ will give you at the time of...
No.
Right now, you have to wear it.
Yeah. This is our only opportunity to form characters for the home which Christ has made ready for those who obey his commandments. The day of our probation are fast closing. The end is near. To us the warning is given. Take heed to yourself, lest any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and the cares of life. So that day, when Jesus comes, right?
You'll be ready.
That day come upon you unawares. See? Make sure that day will not come upon you unaware. Beware lest it find you unready. Make sure that day comes and you are ready. Take heed lest you be found at the king's feast without a wedding garment. Make sure that when divinity has to be in humanity, right, you are ready. As a group, we understand there's the priest and the Levites. When will the priests, like the wise virgins, have the character of Christ? When they receive the Mara vision at midnight, right? They will have divinity in humanity, right? Yeah, they have to have it at that time, right? When is it that the foolish virgins realized that they were not ready? At midnight. It's midnight. It's midnight, right? This is so important because it's at midnight that you have to have the character of Christ, right? When you have the character of Christ, it's divinity and humanity. So the wedding happens when? At midnight. For everybody, it's midnight. So this is when, in such an hour ye think not the Son of Man cometh. You don't know the hour. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garment, lest he walk naked. and they say his shame. See his shame. So that just from this explanation of when Christ comes and comes to the wedding and realizes that at the investigative judgment, you, whether you have the character of Christ, which is the robe of righteousness, or you don't, it is at midnight. And in such an hour as ye think not, the sun cometh, right? You will not know when that thing. So the thing about it is, can we predict when our close of probation is? No. We can't. You can't. You cannot predict your close of probation, because if you're predicting your close of probation, then you don't have to be ready, because then you can postpone it, right? Yeah. You have to be ready all the time, right? You cannot know when midnight is, because if you know when midnight is, you know where your close of probation is, then you don't have to be ready at any time. So when you know it's about time, then you can get ready. No, you have to be ready all the time. Okay? And this, just from Ellen White's quotes in Christ Object Lessons, you can tell that it is obvious that you cannot time set your close of probation, right? Does it make sense that you can time set? You can say, oh, you know what? Well, in school, don't they tell you, oh, you have to get ready for your test?
Yes.
Right?
She asked me like 3 weeks before.
That's right, yeah. But then a lot of people, do they kind of like wait till the last minute?
Yes.
That's what happens if they tell you that your test is going to come in 3 weeks. Right? What happens?
Last minute they actually study for it.
But what if the teacher says, you know what? You don't know when your test is. What do you have to do? You have to prepare all the time, right? You think that makes sense? Yeah.
I remember my students, I tell them, okay, get a sheet of paper, let's do a quiz now, and everybody's groaning. Oh, I like doing that.
Yeah. Okay.
Isn't it a complaint?
Yeah.
Yeah. We know when our close of probation is. We know when there is no more oil to be sold. That's midnight. That's our close of probation. But you are not to know when that is. Because if you know when that is, everybody will procrastinate, right? Okay. That is the summary basically of the wedding feast parable. There's multiple parables, but I'm going to jump to this part. We were ending at all these things, right, last week?
Yes.
Right? We were ending at all these things, and I remember last week we did this. Know ye the parable of the fig tree? The parable of the fig tree right here. When the parable of fig tree, when his branches yet tender. When you see this parable of fig tree, the fig tree starts to make leaves. You know that summer is nigh. So likewise, you and ye shall see all these things. Remember, all these things, right? We did all these things. Know ye that it is near, even at the door. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass, till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Right? But of the day and the hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. So what was he saying? What is going to happen before all these things happen? What was the final? What was the final? Was it when Jesus actually comes in the clouds of heaven and at the last trump? No, it's talking when the temple is destroyed. All these things will happen. All these things will happen, and you will know that is when the temple is going to be destroyed, right? And within one generation of when the leaves bud forth, then you know that this will happen. But all these things will happen, and you will know when the temple will be destroyed, right? All right, because Jesus mingled these things that happened at the time of the ancient Jews also happens at the end of time, okay, in our time, okay. All right, we did this last week, but we're going to go to no one knows the day and the hour, right? Matthew 24, right? Parable of 10 virgins, we've done that, right? But we're going to go to this one. No one knows the day and the hour, okay? Right. Matthew 24. Matthew 24, okay? All right. I think this is the last quotation we ended up with last week, right? Christ gave special directions with regard to this event about the parable of the fig tree. When his branches are yet tender, put forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door. Verily I say unto you, this generation, the generations that sees the leaves bud forth, shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Christ stated plainly to his disciples that he himself would not make known the day and hour of his second appearing. Had he been at liberty to make this time known, what need would there have been for him to exhort them to what? Maintain an attitude of constant expectancy. What's the use of telling you have to be always ready, living and working and waiting as though each day was not their own but the Lord's, cultivating fidelity, faith, and love, and purifying the soul through the truth, right? What is the use of telling you when your probation is if he's telling you to be ready at all times, right? What's the use? Okay, all right. And then we go to this, Matthew 24, okay? This is, we'll go into this a little bit more detailed, okay? Matthew 24, verse 37 to 39. But as in the days of Noah, where so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be, right? So what is Jesus saying? The line of Noah is parallel to the line of what? The Christ coming. Which Christ coming are we talking about? Actually both, right? But his first coming, right? It's actually the first coming. The first coming is so similar, okay? We're going to look at this, right? There was a shut door in Noah's day. There was at that time a withdrawal of the Spirit of God from the sinful race that perished in the waters of flood. When was the shut door in Noah's time? When was the door shut at the time of Noah?
7 days before the rain.
When the door of the ark was closed, right? Who closed the door? Angel. Angel. God himself gave the shut door to Noah. What was the shut door message? My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. That's Genesis 6 verse 3. So he said, your days are numbered 120 years. Because who preached for 120 years? Noah. Okay. Do you think that Noah at this time was going to say, you know what? I'm going to preach for 120 years, and in the end, you better be ready. Is that what he said? I don't think God will do that. Right? Yeah.
I don't even think he knew that he was going to preach 120 years.
Right. I think it was only after the fact, right? We were talking about,
It was after the fact that he didn't know about this,
Yeah.
They were told to enter the ark.
Right.
Yeah.
But though men were so wicked, God would not destroy them without warning. I'm going to destroy you because you're wicked, but I'm always going to give you a warning. During this period of probation, and for them it was what? 120 years. This period of probation, the message of warning given to Noah was to sound in their ears. Why did the inhabitants of Noah's world know not the day of their visitation? But they did not know the day of their visitation. They did not know when Jesus is coming to them, so that they have divinity in humanity. Right? Because they did not have warnings? No. But because they did not heed the message God sent them through Noah. God gave directions to, okay, this is how he did it. This is how he did it, right? Do you know anything about rain or floods? What does that mean? They've never seen rain. They've never seen rain. So God gave them the directions to Noah to build an ark on dry land to warn the people. Now what does that mean? Does that make sense to them?
It doesn't make sense.
It's an impossibility. It doesn't even make sense. I don't know what rain is. I don't know what a flood is. Make an ark on dry land. Something nonsensical.
And then probably Noah said, what is an ark?
Right?
What is the application for us now?
Okay, all right, this is good.
We're going there.
Noah gave the message of the Lord to a large population upon the earth. He gave it by voice and then showed his faith by works, because he'd have to test their faith. Right? You don't understand it, but you have faith in me. Right? You have to do the works. What's the works? Building the ark. Right? Have faith in me. You have to have faith and works. You don't understand what it is, but you have to have faith and works. All right? And the works is building the ark. God gave him exact directions for building this ark. All right? The exact. All right? Okay. My question is, where's divinity and humanity then in here? What's the directions? Are those directions divine?
Oh, yes.
What about the ark? Is that human? Yeah, it's actually Noah building it, right? Yeah, it is human.
Yeah, but
Right? There you go. It's divinity in humanity. Right? You see that? It's divinity in humanity. The directions are divine, and the works is human works, right? You know, they say just, you know, that to Lazarus, you know, just roll the what? Stone, roll thy way off of what? No, people have to roll that stone. Can he say, okay, miraculously an ark gonna appear in front of you?
no.
He could have said that. But he said, no, build the ark. But with divine instructions. That's divinity in. Right. That's divinity in humanity, right? Right. Yeah. You have to have faith first. Then you have the works. Right? Yeah. Right. So it's, how does that imply for us now? Do people believe that we can have divinity in humanity right now?
No.
Is it being preached from the pulpits?
No.
Do people believe? It's impossible for it to. What is rain? It's impossible. How come you build an ark in the? It's an impossibility. So people are preaching, you can't be perfect. Yeah? Wow. But as in the days of Noah, so shall also be the coming of the Son of Man be. So this is the coming of the Son of Man, right? All right, Jesus was born, and then there was the wise men here, and then Jesus was baptized, right? And then he went to the wilderness and he did miracles. What this crowning miracle, the miracle of all miracles was what? Lazarus. That's, he proved divinity in humanity, right? By raising Lazarus. because he is the Son of God. The Son of Man is the Son of God, right? That's divinity in humanity by raising Lazarus. And then there was a triumphal entry, right? Triumphal entry, and then Gethsemane, Golgotha, and then he was raised up, right? This is what the outpouring of the Holy Spirit during the day of Pentecost. This is the stoning of Stephen, and this is the temple being destroyed, right? This is the coming of the Son of Man, right? This is the story of the coming of the Son of Man. Okay, now we have to see the time of Noah. All right, let's do the time of Noah. All right, when did the time of Noah start? Well, we have to put this as the time of the end for us. Okay, this is 9/11. This is midnight. This is midnight cry, and that's the Sunday law. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, when did the divine instruction, when the Holy Spirit came down, right? That's when Noah received the message on how to build the ark, right? Yeah. Okay, that's what I put here, because that's when Jesus was baptized, right? He had the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, right? And then when the people saw that the ark was finished, they were still they were mocking him. The scoffers still mocking him. They did not believe that this was divinity in humanity. That the Pharisees and the Sadducees believed in Jesus, that Jesus was the real Son of God when he raised up Lazarus to prove that he was truly divinity in humanity. They didn't believe him. Yeah? These were the scoffers. There's people that didn't believe that there was divinity in humanity, right? What about the triumphal entry? Was there a procession of animals going into the ark?
Yes.
Right. Right. And when did the door close? Well, that's the door being closed, okay? We can put it at this point right here. Midnight cry. That was the door being closed. Okay? What happened? They had to all go in there. How many went in there? How many went into the ark? 8 people.
Yeah.
How many days did they stay in there? 7 days. Did they know when the flood was going to come? It says right there. And knew not until the flood came. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
They didn't know anything until the flood came. See, this is when the flood came. The flood is what? Rain.
Yeah.
What does that represent? All right, isn't that the Pentecost also?
Yeah.
Yeah? Right? That's the flood coming here. Okay, right? That's the flood. And it says, oh boy, the flood is going up and higher, and everybody's dying here. Okay? And then at the end, after the flood, how many days did it rain? 40 days and 40 nights. And after the end, it receded, and now the earth was all clean, right? And Jesus had to make a covenant with a new world, right? Right? There was a covenant before, but now he had to make a new covenant, right? For a new world. Okay? All right. Okay, so I'm just putting the story of Noah. It does fit here with the story of Jesus. But you know what? What about the time of the end? Was there a prediction given? Right? What does Methuselah mean? Who's Methuselah? Methuselah was the grandfather of Noah. And what does Methuselah mean? After his death, it will come. What will come? The flood. So Methuselah is actually a prediction of when it was the first time that people understand that after Methuselah died, there's going to be a flood that's going to come. Right? So that's like the time of the end here. God gave warnings already, multiple warnings, right? Multiple warnings. He was striving with them for 120 years. Okay? All right. This is 120 years. Moses was giving the message 120 years until the closed door, right? He was striving for them, but they did not believe him, right? 120 years he was striving with them for, right? What about Jesus? Was Jesus striving with the Jewish people for how many years that he had to confirm the covenant with the Jewish people? 3.5 years, right? Yeah, because that's in the middle of that last week. He was what? He was cut off right here. So he was striving for 3.5 years here, right? Until he was cut off right there. And that was the close of probation for them too. Okay? But how many days did he stay in the... he laid in the grave, but he rested on what day? Now they were in this for 7 days, right? They were in here for 7 days. Okay? They were waiting for the rain to come. All right? Now this is something that you might miss. What has the Pentecost do with the number 7? The Pentecost is actually a feast of, it is called also a feast of what? A feast of what? A feast of weeks. How many weeks? 7 weeks, right? 7 weeks, right? The morrow after the 7th week is the Pentecost. That's when the outpouring is. That's the 7 right here. The 7 weeks. They had to wait for 7 weeks until the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. The morrow of the Pentecost is 7 weeks. It's like the Shemitah, the 7 years. 7 times 7 is 49. What is the year after the 7th Shemitah? The Jubilee. The Jubilee is when you are given presents, when things are released back to you, right? Right? Yeah, that's the Jubilee. So this is the 7. The 7 is the 7 weeks of the. They had to wait for 7 weeks until the Pentecost. Okay, they had to wait for 7 days until the rain came. All right, right. And Jesus says, when you see the budding of the leaves, what is the budding of the leaves? The outpouring of the Holy Spirit. Know ye that this is not within one generation. How long is one generation?
40 years.
40 years. Did it rain for 40 days and 40 nights?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Right? It rained for 40 days and 40 nights. Then the whole earth, it is going to be a whole new covenant. It's no longer the covenant with the Jewish people. It's going to be a covenant with new people, the Gentiles. It is no longer a covenant with the old people, right? It's now a covenant with the new people, right? Do you see that? In the days of Noah, it's also in the days of the coming of the Son of Man, all right? Did they know anything until the time of the flood? And knew not until the flood came. Did they know when the probation is going to close here? No. They knew nothing until the flood came. They didn't know anything. You cannot time set your close of probation, right? That's not how God works. He says you have to be ready all the time, right? Right. Okay. All right, how are we? Okay. Let's go here. Luke 17, verse 26 and 30. Now we go to Luke. The thing about Luke is that now he compares Noah's time with the time of Abraham, okay, which is the time of Lot. And as it was in the days of Noah, so it shall be also in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married wives, and they were given in marriage until the days that Noah entered the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, also it was in the days of Lot. Okay, no, so now Luke is going saying what? You have to do the line of Noah with Lot and the Son of Man. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, right? But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven. So the same day that he came out, right, there's the two angels coming out with 4 people out of Sodom, right? It rained fire and brimstone from heaven, right? And destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be the day when the Son of Man is revealed. When the Son of Man comes, it's going to be revealed to you, right? Okay, Ellen White says in Selected Messages book, volume 1, there was a shut door in the days of Abraham. Mercy ceased to plead with the inhabitants of Sodom, and all but Lot with his wife and 2 daughters were consumed by fire sent down from heaven. My question is, when was the shut door? The literal shut door. How many? Actually, at the time of Lot. When did Lot close the door?
When the 2 guys come in and they shut
Yeah, there are actually 2 times that he shut the door, right? When the people want to come in and says, hey, you know what, we like those guests, we would like to know them. And what does it mean to know them? Yeah. It was Sodom and Gomorrah. They wanted to commit sodomy with the angels. And they closed the door, right? Yeah. And then he had to go out again, right? And he could go out at them and says, okay, you know what, I have 2 virgins here. Well, why don't you take the virgins, my two daughters? And no, we don't want those 2 daughters. There was 2 shut doors, but was that the real shut door? No, because what did the okay, let's go through the story. You know, we should open the book, right? Open the book. Where is that? Where is that story gonna be in? Where's the book in? You know, let's just where's the story of Lot? It's going to be Genesis 19. Okay, Genesis 19. All right, we got to read your Genesis 19, verse 1. Okay, Genesis 19, verse 1. And then came 2 angels at the gate at even, and Lot bowed at even. Okay, 2 angels came at even, and he bowed at that even to them. All right, where would you put that? Where would you put this? You know, remember, Luke says it's going to be the same. Where would you put that?
Midnight?
No, it can't be midnight.
No.
When was the second angel's message given?
That would be after the time of the end.
It's got to be here, because this is when the first and the second angel's message come again, right? It's 9/11.
Yeah, 9/11.
Because that's when the second angel's message was given. But remember, the time of the end is actually, let me go back up here, okay? The time of the end was when Abraham was given what was going to happen to Lot, right?
And the 2 angels went.
The 2 angels and who? No, 2 angels and who? Christ. There was 3. 3 of them that met with Abraham. And Abraham was what? Bargaining with them. Okay, Abraham was bargaining with them. That's Genesis 18. Verse 22 and 23. Okay, he was bargaining with them. How many times did he bargain? Okay, this is very interesting. You have to find this out. You have to understand this. This is very interesting, because this is also, there is something to do with how many times did he bargain with and he says, what, you know, why don't you give them a chance? What if you can find 50 people there, right? And then, okay, I'll save them. And then he says, wait a minute, I think that's too many. And then he said, what was the next number?
10.
No, 45. Right? So he bargained down to the second time 45. And then he bargained down to what? Then 40. And then what?
30.
And then 30.
And then 20.
And then 20. and then 10.
Then 10.
So why did he bargain only 6 times? That doesn't make sense. Okay, but was 10 the final number?
No.
What is the final number? Okay, my question to you. All right, I'm going to see if you're, what is the final number? What is the minimum number of people in there that there would be for Sodom and Gomorrah to be saved? What is the minimum? Was it 10?
No, 1.
It was not 10. No, it can't be 1. All right. Oh, Uncle Pete says 5. Why do you say 5, Uncle Pete?
Where are you reading that?
5. All right. How many people were saved from Sodom and Gomorrah?
5. 5 because
4.
no.
4 came out, right? 4 came out, right? Why was there 2 angels sent? Because each angel had 1 person to hold and drag out. Right? Right? 2 angels were sent. The angels held them by their hands and dragged them out. So the angels only had 4 people to pull out. Meaning, if there was 5, then Sodom would have been saved. So the number was actually 5. He had to bargain actually 7 times. So because the number was 5, if he bargained down to 5, that would be the number, right? Yeah. But because 2 angels went there, and they had to pull out, the number was actually 5. That's just thinking of that. Wow, that's pretty amazing. The faith of Abraham. Can you imagine bargaining with? Yeah, all the way down from 50, 45. There were not even 5, see? Not even 5. But if there was 5, they would have been saved because there were only 2 angels that went there who had 4 hands. All right?
How could they be saved if it's 5?
Yeah, because there's only 4, to take out. Because one would have, but there's one would have not been pulled out, and he would not have destroyed Sodom, because there's still 1 person in there. 4 could have been pulled out, right? Okay, so that's the reasoning. Now, that's the reasoning, okay? But anyway, okay, all right. And what Genesis 19 verse 2? What did Lot ask the what to do? What the angels to do? To what? To tarry. Okay? What happens after 9/11? You have to tarry. Isn't that the waiting time? Mm-hmm. You have to tarry. That's why it's at 9/11. This is tarrying right here. Right? The second angel's message, and then you have to tarry. And what did they do? Verse 3. They made a feast and ate unleavened bread. What is that? What do you do when you tarry? You have to eat the little book, right? Right? So that we know that's in this time period, right? Okay. And then in the meantime, in verse 6, there were scoffers outside the door that wanted to know the guests. All right. And then Lot closes the door to keep the angels in. And then he offers his 2 virgin daughters, that the people became very angry with Lot. Now, the angels put Lot, now verse 10, angels pulls Lot into the house to keep the scoffers out, and then shut the door. All right, here we go. Here we go. There's the shut door right there. Now, to shut the door. The scoffers are smitten and blinded and cannot find the door. That's verse 11. And then and verse 12, what did the angel say to Lot? Don't you have any other family members? Meaning, there's still a close of probation still. Yeah, it hasn't closed for everybody, but it's already closed for the people. For some people, it's closed. For the scoffers, right? But there are some people who can still, with the sons and daughters, right? For we shall destroy this place, right? Right. And, okay. Now, Lot tried to persuade verse 14, Lot tried to persuade his son-in-law and other daughters who refused to go and mocked him. Wow, they were mocking him. And because of that, they had to have their door closed on them, right? Okay. And then now go to verse 15. When the morning arose, the angels woke them up and told them to arise and take his wife and his daughters, lest they are burned within the city. Right? What is that? Flee to the mountains, right?
Yeah.
Go run to the mountains. But what did Lot do? He lingered. And now he says the angel had to pull all four of them by their hands and told them not to look behind and escape to the mountain and not stay in the plains, right? But what did Lot do? He bargained. Lot successfully bargained, says, well, I'm old, I can't run to the mountains, let me run to a little city. And what little city did he run to? It's a little city called Zoar. What does Zoar mean? Zoar means little, right? So before you run to the caves, you're going to run to a little city, to your country living place, right? Country living place, right? That's during the little time of trouble, you're going to be in your country living place. Because during the big time of trouble, you're going to be in the caves. All right, okay, all right. And then when the sun had risen, when they arrived at Zoar,
23.
right, that's 23. The angels told them to what? Oh, okay. Then brimstone and fire fell on Sodom and Gomorrah, verse 24, right? So this is the thing. When did Lot's wife look back?
They were already out there.
Oh, they were already in Zoar. It's not when they were trying to flee to Zoar. They were already in Zoar.
Just as he came out, she didn't waste any time to look it up.
Yeah, she actually waited until they were in Zoar. Right,
Yeah.
because when they were in Zoar, and then it rained fire and brimstone. They were in Zoar first, and then they rained fire and brimstone. And then she looked back, right? She looked back, right? It rained fire and brimstone to the cities in the plains, which is Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Sodom and Gomorrah symbolizes two-horned country, nation, right? That's America. So we see that they had to run to the mountains, okay? And when they were running to the mountains, the close of probation came at the Sunday law because it burned the Sodom and Gomorrah, which actually symbolizes America also. And that America's close of probation is at when it makes a decree avoiding the law of God, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So that's also when the new covenant is also made with the Nethinims, the Gentiles, who come in at the Sunday law, right? Those who escape Edom, Moab, and Ammon, right? Okay. Right. That's the Sunday law. So you see this, the time of Lot fulfills the story. You know, it parallels the story of Noah, and it fulfills the Son of Man here. Says, when you run to the mountains, you have to run to the mountains when you see the what? Jesus says, run to the mountains, flee to the mountains when you see the what?
Desolation.
Abomination of desolation. Okay, to them. Run to the mountains, Lot and the wife of Lot, the family of Lot. Run to the mountains when you see the abomination of desolation. My question to you, what is the abomination of desolation during this time?
Lot's time.
Yeah, during last time. What's the abomination? I'm just going to ask you. What's the abomination of desolation?
Decree.
Right? Is it? No, right?
No,
Could it? Yeah.
When the angels told them to flee, right? And when the people did refuse.
Yeah, the people are right. You know, my question is, I was thinking, could it be that when he sees that his daughters, who have now married people from Sodom and Gomorrah, they have an unholy alliance, right? And they have an unholy marriage. But that's not an abomination of desolation. That's the mark of the beast test, right? That's city, and that's the union of church and state, right? That's an unholy marriage. What is the abomination of desolation?
When the papacy,
When there's the
church.
right, when there's unholy practices in the place where it should not be. What about when those people wanted to have?
They wanted with the angels.
Right. That has to be the abomination of desolation. Right? When you see those things, make sure that you run to the mountains. Yeah? That's abomination. Isn't that abomination of desolation?
Yeah.
If anything? Right? Do you see the all these the clergy doing abomination of desolation already? Right? Wow. Right. Run to the mountains. Okay.
So
All
that
right.
means if we go even to the country living, there's still people will come out. I mean, will sliding down. I mean, backsliding.
Oh, yeah, there's still gonna people up here because even what, even the wife, Lot's wife, they were already in Zoar, and Lot's wife still looked back. And one of the reasons why is because Lot hesitated. Okay, all right. How are we doing? Okay, I'm just trying to make one point here. Okay, all right. Let's see. In that day, he which shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the house, let him not come down. Take it away, and he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. See, what is it talking about? When you see the abomination of desolation, you got to run, right? But then it says, remember Lot's wife, right? You got to run.
I mean, you still can, even if you flee, you still can, you think you've already escaped, but even if you're already out, you still can.
You can't look back. You cannot look back, right? Even when you see the abomination of desolation, when you run to the mountains, don't look back, right? Do not, right? Remember Lot's wife. So right here, Lot's line is being compared to the line of Jesus when Jesus says, run to the mountains, right? Right. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whosoever lose his life shall preserve it, right? Okay, this, right. And when we're still at, this is when Genesis 19, when the morning arose and the angels hastened Lot, arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters which are here, lest thou be consumed with the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, because there were 2 angels pulling 4 people, right? Yeah. Right. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in the plain, escape to the mountains. Do not stay in the plains, because where the cities are in the plains, all the cities and the plains are going to be destroyed, right? Matthew 24, this is now Jesus saying, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, when you see somebody doing this abomination of desolation, want to do abomination of desolation with angels? Wow. Spoken by Daniel the prophet. That's Daniel 11 verse 36, right? Whosoever readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. neither let him which is in the field return back. Right? Okay. Right. I'm still trying to make, there's another thing here. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and firestone from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew these cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the city, that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. Right? It was during that same day. They ran out before it was break of day, and by sundown it was raining fire. Right? And his wife looked back when they already were in Zoar. Right. Now look 17 here. I tell you, in that night there shall be 2 men in one bed, and one shall be taken, and the other shall be left. 2 women is a supplied word. Look at this. It's not 2 women actually. 2 shall be grinding together. One shall be taken, the other left. Right? 2 shall be in the field. One shall be taken, the other will be left. He said, when you're in the field, don't go back. Right? Run. And they answered and said unto him, where, Lord? And he said unto them, whosoever the body is, thither will the eagles be gathered together. What is Jesus referring to? Lot's wife. They were all running together, but one was left back. The others escaped. So when you're running from the destruction, trying to avoid the destruction from the destruction that's going to happen, when you see the abomination of desolation, do not look back, because if those who look back, one will be left and the other one taken. Right? Yeah. Not one Christian perish in the destruction of Jerusalem. Christ has given his warning. When ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, know that the desolation therefore is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee out of the mountains. Let them which are in the midst of it depart. At the time of the siege, the Jews were assembled at Jerusalem to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. And thus the Christians throughout the land were able to make their escape unmolested. Without delay, they fled to a place of safety, the city of Pella, in the land of Perea, beyond Jordan. But what about those who stayed? One was left and one was taken, right? What about those? In the fury, the soldiers hurled blazing brands into chambers adjoining the temple. And with their swords, they slaughtered in great numbers those who had found shelter. Those who wanted to find shelter in the temple. What? And on what day was it? It was a Sabbath day. Blood flowed down the temple steps like water. Thousands upon thousands of Jews perished. Above the sound of battle, voices were heard. Ichabod, the glory is departed. Right? Make sure when you run, do not hesitate, do not look back, because one is going to be left and one is going to be taken. All right?
So literally not run to the mountain. It's the city of Pella.
All right. It was because, remember, he bargained for a small city. See, he bargained for a small city. Because Lot also went to Zoar. He didn't run to a cave right away. He ran to Zoar first. So they ran to a city, also a small city. It's not a big city, it's a small city. Yeah, it's Pella.
So not literally have to go to the mountain.
Not to the caves right away, right? Yeah, okay. I have one. Now, what about here? This is another thing. What about when Jesus was at the cross? Was there a judgment right there?
Yes.
For who? One on his right, and the other one on his left. And one of the malefactors which hang rallied on him, saying, If thou be Christ, save thyself and us. But the other answered, rebuked him, saying, Dost not thou fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive due reward for our deeds. But this man has done nothing amiss. And he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest unto thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. One was saved, another one was lost, right? Yeah. So when you run to the mountains, make sure you do not linger or hesitate, because you could be the one that is saved or the one that is left, right? Yeah. It depends on your obedience to what was said. Do not look back. Do not look back, right? Yeah. Right. Okay, I think we'll stop right there. Right? This is we're not done with this. We'll continue next time, and the story still continues about whether we will know our close of probation. Right? From this, all these things that we've studied, we cannot know when our close of probation, because would be no use, Ellen White said, of Jesus telling you to be always in a state of readiness, right? Yeah. And that is a more sure word of prophecy.